Welcome to Commit and Push, the podcast about how great software really gets built. I'm Damien Filiatrault, your host and the founder of Scalable Path. Each episode, I talk with founders, developers, and leaders about the decisions, trade-offs, and hard lessons behind successful digital products. Let's get into it. So today I'm speaking with Brit Myers, VP of Engineering at System Initiative. Brit, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Damien.
Thanks for being here. So how long have you been at System Initiative?
Yeah, I've been with System Initiative about 2.5 years now. So I joined in April of April of 23. And it has been quite the journey since I've joined.
Yeah. I mean, I know you're, as the VP of Engineering, like that can mean a lot of things. Like what does that mean day to day for you at the company?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time working closely with product and design, sort of making sure the work that we're doing is heading towards the outcomes that we want, as well as prepping for where we're going next, and what are the future problems that we'll need to solve for. I've been writing some code.
Yeah. Still doing
we're
that.
Still a startup. There's lots of code to write.
Yeah.
So I try to chip in where I can and
That's good.
Take tasks that won't take me 2 weeks to complete, quick wins here and there. But yeah, so it's been fun. I've gotten to learn Rust. I didn't know Rust before joining, so that was an experience. And yeah, it's a lot
Is your background in DevOps?
My background's actually in software engineering.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started my career as an entry-level software engineer, spent about a decade at a company. I'm from the Cleveland area, so a company that's headquartered out here, and sort of by happenstance found myself in the middle of like, what is DevOps and how do we solve this problem at that point for my dev teams who were trying to ship code to production as quickly as possible. And I've never left because it's this perfect mix of product and business risk and technical risk and process risk and org structure risk, and I love how tangled all of that can be, and I love trying to untangle it and figure out how we can do things better.
Cool. So why don't we let our audience know just what is System Initiative? What are you guys building?
Yeah, System Initiative is an AI native infrastructure automation platform. So anything that Terraform or your GitOps pipelines can do, we can do. Anything that other sort of operational tools and utilities can do, we can do, but we've really started from sort of the ground up and challenging some of those core original assumptions about how we've approached trying to solve DevOps problems and kind of rethought it with the lens of, how do we make collaboration easier? How do we get feedback faster? How do we have more control over what happens and when? And how do we just bolster the confidence of the engineers doing the work so that they do a little less merge and pray and a little more, I got this, I know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So what's Adam's title? The founder, co-founder?
Adam's our CEO and co-founder. Yep.
Okay. He was the guy who was behind Chef, right?
Yep.
So
yep.
I was listening to another podcast with him on it that was like a 2-hour long podcast. And it was a little bit about System Initiative, but this will lead us a little into why what you're doing is different, I think. But like, what made him found System Initiative, and like, why did he do it?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for him entirely, but I think sort of the premise is the industry, and he was not satisfied with the results that we have achieved sort of as an industry as a whole over the last 10, 15 years. And so, while Chef had great success and they solved a lot of problems, we also learned a lot about what other problems are kind of coming next in a world where there is more automation where there wasn't previously. And so he's been relentlessly sort of trying to get the outcomes, like the golden dream that that we talk about, and recognizing that the core sort of fundamental assumptions that we've made aren't the foundation that we need to build upon. And so he's been just approaching that, since day one.
Mm-hmm. And just to sort of lead you in, so what are the core assumptions, that we are making now, and that, tools like Terraform are making, that you guys disagree with or think need to change?
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot. So let me pick maybe my top couple. I think for one, that the way to implement that the only way that you can automate infrastructure is through declarative files that are statically generated, created, versioned, and sort of processed. I think is kind of number one. That yes, while some things and some infrastructure is resilient, the cattle versus pets. Do you have servers and infrastructure running that are precious and you need to maintain with like tight control and lots of care, or can you dispose of them at will and spin up new ones? The reality is not everything can be treated as cattle, and you need some flexibility in how you approach solving those problems. I think the second one is that state management and that reconciliation loop is sort of second party. It exists outside of where the declaration lives and is versioned separately. And in the case of Terraform, like Terraform manages a state file. If you've ever talked to any DevOps engineer, SRE type who's had to go manually mess with state, things can go incredibly wrong if you make the wrong sort of change. And so, we believe that in order to manage all of the complexity of the infrastructure that we have, you need to be able to have tight control over not only the declaration, like what do you want to exist, what the state is, what does reality show you, as well as how do you move from point A to point B, or B to A, depending on sort of what has changed and what what has transpired between time. Like one example I'll give you is Terraform assumes that all of your changes are made through Terraform. And so if anybody's ever gone, logged into Google Cloud Console, AWS Console, and made some changes, like somebody has to go reconcile that and make sure that you're not going to just overwrite that change. And so that there's just this single one directional flow of work is like one of the core assumptions that we're challenging, where we recognize sometimes what you need to do is go log into the AWS console and stop the bleed if what you're doing is bleeding money or if you've got some incident. And that shouldn't come with baggage. That shouldn't come with this stark trade-off of like, well, oh no, what problem am I gonna cause later if I do it this way? You should be able to do what you need to do when you need to do it. And part of the architecture of our platform just holds that very true and makes that possible.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is really the crux of it, right? Like the core difference of the product. And, I'm not an infrastructure specialist by any means. But I've been chatting with people about this digital twin, one-to-one model thing that you guys are proponents of. And, my, DevOps main guy was like, well, you just do it in Terraform, and you shouldn't ever not do it in Terraform. And I don't, what's the big deal? And so what's the example? Like how frequently are people making changes outside of it? What is it? People don't know what they're doing or they, like how common is this use case? How important is this use case?
It's, I think if what you're doing is starting a greenfield project or an entirely new way of delivering software for an organization, then everything that you just said can be far easier because you build towards that in the first place. But often what we find is not everything is just built from scratch, software included, services included. And so, especially where, for example, the application itself is not stateless. And so you need to be able to handle applications that are not stateless with more grace or more care than if the application were stateless. If it's stateless, tear it down, spin up another one, who cares? And so particularly when your application architecture is evolving over time and your infrastructure is evolving over time and the automation is evolving over time, you end up in a mixed mode where some things it's very easy to say, yeah, make the change in Terraform. The pipelines are fast, it'll execute quickly, and your mean time to resolution will be low. But if you haven't yet finished investing and making that scenario true, you're in this half ground where you know where you want to get to, but you can't get there as quickly as you want, or without more architecture or re-architecture sort of around the process and the automation of deploying software and managing infrastructure. And so it's really in that when you have a mixed bag and you're in process of automating, or you're in process of modernizing, or you're in process of rolling out architecture changes where you're not starting from a clean slate. And so when you don't have a clean slate, the fastest thing to do isn't always, we'll just make the Terraform change and that'll take care of it for you.
Okay. I mean, what's an example of a type of client that ends up in this situation that you've seen?
I would say any client that has software that they have deployed that exists longer than DevOps has been around, guaranteed. So most insurance companies, most financial services, because that investment is a hard one to make, to say, hey, we can do no new development, because what we have to do is take the whole team and just catch up the old stuff into how the new stuff is working. Like, that requires serious investment. And of course, like, those teams are tapped. They're usually serving multiple stakeholders, whether it's multiple dev teams or multiple orgs within the organization. But certainly folks with like legacy, I'll say legacy, anything that's delivering value that is older than what the tools were able to support at the time that they were created.
Mm-hmm. Okay, gotcha. And so, what are some of the other new features that your product has? And for example, I know that there are functions, programmable functions. Well, maybe we could start there.
Sure. So let me think of an analogy here. So where Terraform sort of models your infrastructure across files, maybe across repositories, and more often that state transition. So I say I want to create a new blah blah blah. I want to provision a new database instance or a cluster, or provision a new EC2 instance, whatever it is. The work that actually runs, that calls out to AWS, calls out to Google Cloud, and is like, give me Postgres, please. That function itself is also defined someplace else. And so with this digital twin, those state transitions are part of the model that is running within System Initiative at all times. And so what that means is, if you want to change how any given behavior happens, you can change it directly in the product without having to go fork some other repository, open a PR, maybe take ownership of it or not. Hopefully it gets adopted and the providers accept your PR. That sort of, there's a huge feedback loop that can happen there when you need to make changes. And so everything that happens in System Initiative is effectively the result of a function. And so, I'll give you an example of you want this set of infrastructure to be in this region. And instead of having to specify or thread a variable through each of the places where you want that infrastructure to exist, what we do in System Initiative is we model that with a direct relationship and a function that runs and says, hey, anytime you update the region, I want to go from US East 1 to US East 2, then the system reactively processes that sort of downstream and makes sure that everything that was referencing that value also gets updated with the latest value. It also means that things like policy, like, is this best practices for my organization? Is this in line with our compliance, stature? Those types of things can also be programmed as like reactive functions that run. And so, I updated an instance size to be the mega expensive one. Maybe the organization doesn't want that, and that's feedback that you can get live running now, as opposed to sort of after the fact, or blocking pipeline merges because of things like that.
Mm-hmm. So you gave examples of functions that do things for you, do things to the infrastructure. There's a function example you gave of checking if it's following an internal company policy. What about security? What's an example of using functions to maintain that?
Sure. Let me think. So one example, so that sort of policy function is can be applied more broadly, and that is to say, like when you have sets of configuration that you can programmatically detect whether or not it's secure, like that is something that you can program into the model itself, and it will run reactively just like anything else. I think we haven't yet talked about change sets, which I want to talk about in terms of like what other feature exists, because security in particular in System Initiative is accomplished through simulations, and by that, every time that you want to propose a new change, you see not only the change you want to make, but also the potential impact in the world, including any security functions or other scans that need to run in order to say, hey, is this change valid and is this what I want to do? And that sort of plan step is what Terraform calls it, but for us, it's more than just a plan, because it shows not only how the values will propagate throughout the system, as well as what actual, like, what do I need to do in the real world to make this true? Do I need to create an update? Can I only update? Do I need to delete and create? Like all of those permutations of like reconciling, how do I make this real, are things that you have tight control over in the model as a closure. That also can run in simulations.
Mm-hmm. So when you're defining functions, how are you defining what a function does inside of System Initiative?
Yeah,
like,
so
is there a coding language?
They're all TypeScript. Yep, they're all TypeScript functions, and so we have sort of a number of different function kinds, and we kind of say, here's how you need to configure them, and here's the return value we expect, and it's all just TypeScript.
Okay, cool. So a quick pause here. I wanted to tell you a bit about why I started my software staffing company, Scalable Path. Back in 2008, I was working on a client project with some developers in Argentina, and I saw how amazing it was working with people in my time zone who were just as available as people in my office. So in 2010, I started Scalable Path to help companies take advantage of this underutilized talent pool. And since then, we've built a platform of over 40,000 developers, and we've placed over 600 of them with over 300 clients. So if you're looking to hire top-notch dev talent at a fraction of the cost of hiring locally, visit scalablepath.com/commit, and as a listener of the podcast, you can get 20% off your first month. I'd love for you to give us a try. Okay, and then you want to talk about change sets.
Yeah, and so, particularly as it relates to collaborating with peers, or, now in this day and age with like AI agents, where, I don't know the confidence level of infrastructure engineers to say, hey, I'm going to give an AI agent write access to my production infrastructure, I would say is quite low, and the cost of being wrong is quite high. And so within System Initiative, we have things called change sets, which are more or less simulations of the real world and potential changes you want to make. And so what that enables is for you to collaborate with your peers with an AI agent in the safety of a change set, and only, when ready, when the human says it's ready, or if you so have the right checks and automation checks in place, if you want to let the AI agent go ahead and apply some changes, great, you can do that too. But that, like, reducing the cost of being wrong and increasing the feedback you get when you're proposing changes is like a core problem that we aim to solve, that is particularly beneficial when you're collaborating with AI agents.
Okay, can we get a little more into like a concrete example of that? Like, are you somehow, you're saying, hey, AI agent, this is what I want to do. You're describing what change you want to make in English, and then some built-in agent inside your software that will go and like propose some changes, make some changes, and then run this change set, and then you will then be able to like see a model of how things would be after that was done, and then you could look at it and say, yes, that's how I want things to be, and then you say, okay, do it for real.
Close, very close.
Okay.
So like the AI agent lives separate to the workspace itself and separate to the change sets. But what you could do,
where does the agent live? I mean,
it can run.
That can be any. Is it
that could be any.
You could
exactly. You could bring Claude.
Okay.
Yep. So you bring Claude, and because of the digital twin, and because of the one-to-one model, and because like these agents are all trained on the world's internet of data, including how providers work, then their translation between what they know about AWS and what it's able to see within your change set, like that one-to-one model means that like the accuracy, not only is the accuracy higher, but its ability to then go gather more context as it needs is like, it is actually incredible to watch. So I'll give you an example. We had somebody who had basically modeled out an architecture diagram in AWS of like, here's what I want to exist in the world. They had an existing AWS account with some infrastructure provisioned. They uploaded that image of the architecture diagram, and from the architecture diagram and what the agent knew about AWS, and then being able to interact with System Initiative in that one-to-one way, what would have taken him hours, days, who knows, to sort of get that whole thing spun up correctly, the AI agent was able to do in like 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. And it wasn't one shot. Like this, the claim here isn't that like you will be right the first time and it'll be perfect every time, but it's that you can iterate, you can collaborate, it'll self-correct where it needs to, and learn as it goes and gain context as it goes. And because it's every change that it's making is happening in the context of a change set, you can pull up our web UI and watch the application. You can watch the changes happen. You can see, another example is like, I want to discover, like, what do I even have? And so you'll say, hey, go discover all of my stuff that is here, and it'll just start like, oh, well, I'll start at the networking level. Let me see what VPCs are there. It'll pull them in. And then it's like, oh, you have some subnets in those VPCs. And then it starts pulling them in. And you end up building this like highly, a high fidelity. I mean, it builds the digital twin for you sort of as you go, and you can watch it happen in real time because the whole thing's multiplayer and collaborative.
So you can, I mean, that we kind of skipped over that, but you can just, and mainly this works with AWS right now, right? Like this
There's nothing AWS specific about the implementation, but the coverage we have right now is AWS. Yeah. More to come, of course.
So if you are on AWS, you can just get the product and say, discover, and it will search the network and kind of find stuff and then build the model in the database of the application and sort of show it to you in like a graph and with a bunch of data about every node. And
exactly. Now each of those functions that run, including the ones that call out to AWS, like that are all written in TypeScript, they need to be authenticated. And so like you have to give us a credential to be able to call out to your AWS account. Now, whether that's static credentials and a short-lived token that you just want to play with and see what it's about, or what people do as they move to using it for real is with an assume row policy, which is sort of industry standard practice for how these types of integration and automation tools work.
Mm-hmm. As you may know, I run a vetted talent platform called Scalable Path, and I'm offering a 20% discount to listeners of the podcast. So if you're interested in scaling your dev team faster and smarter, visit scalablepath.com/commit. So going back to this AI agent scenario we're talking about, so and even taking one step back, you said earlier, like, we have this model, this digital twin. You want things to be declarative on the one hand, but also react to changes in the real world. So is that one and the same? Like, is the database model that you have both the declaration and the representation Precisely. Of the real world at the same time?
Precisely. Okay. Precisely.
And so you can either say, here's my infrastructure, and then build the model from that, or you can declare it yourself. Yep. And if you declare it yourself, how are you doing that? You know what I mean? If you're declaring what you want to see in the world, are you doing it through a UI or with code?
You could do it. You could do it in a number of ways. You could do it through the UI. You could do it with code. You could do it automating it via GitHub. Like if as a reaction to some PR merging or some software change, you want to go interact with infrastructure, or you can do it with an AI agent. All modes of interaction are supported.
Okay, but I would think that the current state of AI agents, that it's when the agent makes changes through System Initiative, is it doing it by writing, your configuration as code, or is it like interacting with an API?
It's interacting with an API.
Okay, so it's like an MCP
exactly
endpoint that it can like. Okay.
Exactly. And so like that, when we say it's a one-to-one model, part of the pain of trying to use AI agents right now in infrastructure as code land is, rarely are teams interacting directly with sort of the model provider or the Terraform module provider. So for Amazon ensures that they have coverage across their suite so that you can automate infrastructure with Terraform, right? But especially as teams scale and platform engineering becomes a thing, and you're looking for what is it called? Economies of scope and economies of scale in your infrastructure work. What you end up creating are templates, or this template. Every time I use this template, I get a dev stack that gives me A, B, C, D, and E already pre-configured, and these are the 4 values that I have to give it. And so, because that one-to-one-ness is lost in that world, then the AI agent has to not only like understand what your template is doing, but then also to get it right, be like, well, what does making this change in this template mean for ultimately what the change is that I want to see in the world? And just as both your intent, your declaration, and the real world reality is contained within system initiative within our model, so is the one-to-one, and what is the template that you're using to provision and to drive that rollout of multiple pieces of infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, getting a little deep for me, but I'm following most of it. So, couple questions rolled into one here. No, I'll keep them separate. So, this is a new company. I mean, you've been around a while in stealth mode. You're coming out of, I don't know how stealth you are, but
there's been a lot of R&D that has gone into this as we've both
mm-hmm.
iterated on not only like the core modeling and like what does it mean to have something one-to-one, as well as like what are all the interaction patterns around it, and how does what parts of it do they need to author, what parts of it do they need to be able to modify. And we've really tried to avoid making like too opinionated of decisions. For example, saying declarative is the only way is a decision we believe is wrong and didn't want to make. And so how do you grapple with it? Needs to be support declarative, as well as sometimes I just need to reboot an instance, and there is no signal I can give to say reboot this instance.
Mm-hmm. So you're, I hadn't heard about system initiative until very recently, right? I'm sure if you're really in the DevOps world, you might have, but it's not a thing people are generally using right now. Like how close are you to this, to like fully like launching this? And you can, right now you can download like an open source version of it, and there's going to be another like fully more like SaaS product, or how is that working?
Yeah, it's launched now. So we've got a multi-tenant SaaS.
Okay, you're launched.
Systeminit.com. You can sign up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
When did that launch?
We're all out there. We're a month ago.
Okay. So yeah, when we were talking about doing this,
I think just before we had talked.
Okay. All right. Cool. So it's launched, and I'm sure it's brand new. It's like so many people are using AWS that's plenty of market for you right there.
Yep.
My personal experience right now is that we were on AWS for probably 14 years, 13 years, something like that. At least a decade at my company, Scalable Path. And we recently just migrated off of it to a German company called Hetzner. And I think we're paying like less than a quarter of the cost. And, I'm sure that you have tons of people that want to pay, or stay on AWS, and there's just tons of that. But like, what is the realistic plan for like having this product support? I'm sure you're going to do Google Cloud next. But like, will it ever support like smaller companies, or
Oh,
will
for
they
sure.
write their own connectors? Like
that's yeah. So like the authoring experience is built into the product itself as well. And so funny you mentioned Hetzner. We're actually spinning up some discovery right now to add coverage to Hetzner sort of as we speak. But yes, all of anybody can create an account, and when they sign up, what they can do is if they don't see what they need, they can start authoring it directly in the product right there.
oh, so
when everything is a function, even the definition of like what is a database or what is an EC2 instance itself is the result of a function. And so you can write that function that says, well, a EC2 instance has a region and it has an instance type and it has all these levers you need to pull. Like all of that is also authored right in.
So realistically though, like people aren't going to be like writing their own like support for a totally new hosting provider. Like
Not
you'd have
for
to be pretty special.
not for all of it. We've because our core, like the way that we reflect like what we call them schemas, right? They're assets.
Yeah.
Like what is an asset? What is an EC2 instance? What we're doing is we're automating as much of that as we can. So even the coverage we have with AWS, we have a pipeline that runs every day that generates everything that's needed based off of the AWS specs. And so the work that we're kicking off is to be able to expand that to support other types of specs. And so what we believe is that those core sort of one-to-one models with your cloud provider, those aren't things you should need to worry about or should need to worry about updating or modifying. And the templates that you build on top of it or the modifications that you make to them that's custom to you are the things that you would care about. And that's all work that's like actively in progress, both from coverage as well as making that loop as seamless as it can be, so that you don't have to. I think DevOps is a lot of you can't have your cake and eat it too, for reasons that are just architectural decisions that were made a long time ago. And so part of what we're trying to do is unpair the you can have your cake and eat it too. Like you don't have to worry about all of the complexity while being able to take advantage of the fact that when you want to, it's there and it's waiting for you, and it's not a major refactor of a bunch of infrastructure code to do so.
So any sense of like when new providers will be supported?
Well, like I said, it's so ironic. Literally today we were talking about Hetzner. So if this were next week, I might have a better answer for you on Hetzner.
Do you have a plan for GCP?
Yeah, GCP, Azure are all top of the list.
Is it this
DigitalOcean
next X number of months?
Yeah, I think we're shooting this year, and we're just we've got a list, and we're
in
just going to kind of burn down.
2025. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, as much as we can. Yep.
Okay, cool.
For sure.
All right. So how much does it cost? Like, how do you pay for it?
Yeah. So right now it's billed by resources under management per hour, and so it's a usage-based model where for every piece of infrastructure somewhere else that we're managing and tracking and exposing to you, you'll pay per hour for that ability to do so.
Cool.
If I say 0.7 of a penny is the is the number.
Cool. It's hard to sit here in my brain and figure out how much that would be like. But what generally like how much of what percentage of someone's hosting bill might if you're add system initiative on top of it to manage it, like do you have any sense of that?
That's a good question, actually. I don't know that I do, because it just greatly depends on spend in AWS or spend in your cloud provider isn't always one-to-one with like the value of managing, and so it doesn't map quite nicely as like it'll be 10 or 15% or 5% of spend, but we certainly have people that like that's sort of how they're thinking about it, and we're an early stage startup. Like if that's your problem, that should not be your problem. Come talk to us, please.
Well, cool. Well, thank you for breaking it down for me. I feel like it's a lot clearer in my head what you guys are doing. So I appreciate you.
Happy to share. Thank you for the great questions.
talking about it. Yeah. Anything you want people to know before we wrap things up here?
I think what I would say is, we really haven't yet found a use case, particularly in working with AI, that has flopped. And I would love to know what that is, and like when does it flop, and when does the ideal behind the architecture, like where does it fall over? We haven't found that yet. And I'm excited as more people try it, sort of challenge people to like what's the complexity, like what's the situation you've got that you don't think will work. I'd love to see it.
Okay. Well, do you want people to be able to get in touch with you somehow?
Yeah, sure. We have I don't know if you do show notes. We have a Discord. We have a Discord server that we'd love for folks to join.
I can get that in the notes.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not a big, I don't know, Twitter, X, social media. I feel too old. I can't figure that out.
Right.
But Discord or LinkedIn would be...
Discord and LinkedIn. All right. Well, Brit, it's been a pleasure. And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much. This was fun.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Commit and Push. If you found it valuable, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. And if you're building a team, check out scalablepath.com to find top developers. Until next time, keep building, keep pushing.